We're a month into the 2025 season, and it's already been quite the roller coaster. While many teams are still finding their groove, the landscape of the rest of the season has already been taking shape. For the first week of every season, there's always some new thing that's here to ruin baseball. This year, it was the torpedo bat, which was making hitting too easy apparently when the Yankees used it in their first series. Thankfully, baseball was saved once people realized that bat variations are as old as the game itself, and other teams have begun adopting the torpedo bat. Crazy how that works. As expected, the AL East is a full 5-team dogfight to start off the season. The Yankees remain at the top, with their offseason acquisitions looking more than comfortable in the Bronx. They lead the league in runs scored, which was initially pinned on the torpedo bats, but it's more of a product of their high end talent. There's only one problem though, their pitching isn't exactly great either. With Garrett Cole's injury, their only real option for an ace is Max Fried. The thin depth is already being tested, and the rest of their division is more than ready to dethrone them. The Blue Jays started off the season strong, but the problems with their roster have become more glaring with time. While their hitters are still struggling a bit to open the season, their record has been just fine thanks to their stellar rotation. For every player that's doing well, it seems like there's another one that's slumping right next to him. Unless Anthony Santander can get going, I really think the Blue Jays are about to start falling through the cracks a bit. The Red Sox are already proving to be inconsistent. Depending on the week, they'll either mash everything in sight or be the most anemic looking offense in the sport. For an example, look no further than Rafael Devers, who began the season with an 0 for 16 streak as the DH, but has since rebounded to return to form. No matter what, though, it always seems like there's some kind of meltdown happening for this team. They lead the league in errors by a long shot, which isn't too surprising. No matter how good guys like Bregman or Crochet are, the Red Sox still just invent ways to lose games. The Rays have largely embraced their move into Tampa proper, which has kept them treading water so far in the standings. While they don't have a bunch of high end talent on the roster, guys like Jonathan Aranda and Shane Baz continue to make names for themselves. Unfortunately, that lack of high end talent is ultimately keeping them from being much more than average. Surprisingly in dead last are the Orioles, who are underachieving to say the least. They're characteristically streaky, looking like an overmatched team of kids before randomly pouring on the runs. Their quiet offseason watching their depth walk away is coming back to bite them, especially in the pitching department, as they gave up the most embarrassing score of the month, losing to the Reds 24-2. The window might already be slamming shut on the Orioles, and it's entirely on the cheap ownership. There's been a great deal of underachieving so far in the AL Central, which isn't too surprising. Atop the pile so far are the Tigers, after shaking off a brutal 4-game opening series in LA. They picked up right where they left off in 2024, quietly being one of the best offenses in baseball. They've become a model of consistency for the rest of the division, just playing fundamentally sound baseball to start the year as Tarek Skubal continues to hurl fire. The Guardians started the season with 3 straight road series, and it predictably put them in a bit of a hole. What isn't predictable is how they lost these games, with uncharacteristically bad defense. Thankfully, they're in the AL Central, so it didn't take too long for them to catch back up. This team looks a bit different than last season, more focused on offense rather than run prevention. Either way, they're back to competing for the top of the division. The Royals have been off to a frustratingly mediocre start. While their rotation has quietly been one of the best in baseball, their offense has simultaneously been one of the worst. Nobody except for Bobby Witt Jr. can reliably get on base, and they're dead last in league in homers. As a result, they've already been shut out several times this season. Like the Guardians, there's plenty of time to correct course, but this is looking less and less like the team that made the playoffs last year. Another year, another predictable disappointment for the Twins. What was seen as a very average roster in the offseason can't even muster that much, and a lot of the team already looks checked out. Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez will continue to steal them some games, but the Twins already look demoralized and disinterested. After the bitter failure of last year, this looks like it'll be a long and humiliating season of recognizing this core has failed. The White Sox started off by winning their opening game, being above 500 for the first time in 2 seasons. Since then, though, it's been a return to anemic baseball for them. They lost games on a walk-off walk and a pulled hammy, and that was just one series. The circus is officially back in town. The AL West has been very messy and unpredictable so far. The Astros stumbled out the gate, hovering around 500 with a particularly limp offense. Their power bats of Jordan and Christian Walker are struggling to even hit above the Mendoza line. Jose Altuve has been having a weak start by his standards as well. While there's plenty of time to correct course, the Astros just don't look like a very good baseball team right now. Then again, they started off 2024 with a 7-19 record and won their division, so don't count them out yet. The Astros' early struggles have given plenty of room to their division rivals, most namely their fellow Texans. The Rangers initially surged to a strong start, but have been bogged down with their own struggles. Their bats have been completely silent, even their core guys like Simeon are having massive struggles behind the plate. Combined with very mixed results from their bullpen, the Rangers still have a lot to figure out. The good news is that they still find ways to win games despite all these problems, so even a light return to form for their core will see tremendous results. Also, surprisingly, in the mix are the Angels. They started the month hitting at a pace we haven't seen from them in ages, bringing energy back to a fan base that was desperate for literally any kind of decent baseball. While he's been great, their best player so far hasn't even been Mike Trout. It's been utility man Kyron Paris of all people. Unfortunately, their massive struggles to end the month are making these good times seem more and more like a mirage. It's incredibly difficult to gauge the Mariners this season. One series they'll look like a complete punchline, leaving runners stranded and losing one-run games in pathetic fashion. The next series they'll beat the brakes off a playoff contender like it's nothing. The only consistency is that they have a fantastic rotation, featuring two different Luis Castillos. Their offense has been cooking towards the end of the month, but it's the Mariners. It'll go cold when it's most needed. The Athletics are at their best as the away team, because their home sure as hell doesn't feel like home. So far, opposing teams have been more than happy to embarrass the A's in Sacramento, making their games truly feel like spring training. Still, they have arguably the best closer in the game in Mason Miller, and enough power throughout the lineup to keep them in the hunt. Again, though, who really cares? The two-headed monster of the Phillies and Mets are already reigning supreme over the AL East, and they're not looking back. The Phillies are already wasting no time in hitting Schwarbombs and letting their stellar rotation do their work. The Phillies took a bit of a slide in the middle of the month, but they've already maintained a strong presence as a contender by finding ways to win close games against good teams. The same can also be said for the Mets, who are breathing a sigh of relief that they were able to keep Pete Alonso. He had an April for the ages, hitting at an MVP level to elevate the Mets to the top of the standings. Juan Soto is also making an impact, but the team thankfully hasn't had to rely on him to carry them. They're kind of just a juggernaut in all facets, and they've still got a chip on their shoulder. The Nats are eager to prove to everybody that their rebuild is finally over. Their young, talented core just continues to be bolstered as guys like James Wood continue to make an impact once they make it up to the show. Their young rotation guys also look solid, especially Mackenzie Gore, who currently leads the league in strikeouts. As much as they want to break onto the scene, they've still got plenty of problems to address before they get there, namely their bullpen, which has been a disaster so far. Just by starting the season around 500, the Marlins are already exceeding expectations for 2025. They're a very inexperienced team without a ton of future potential, but they find ways to win one-run games. They're certainly more entertaining than they were last year, and that alone should be taken as a victory for Marlins fans. Maybe this new approach will make it so there's more than five of you guys someday. In hindsight, it's not too surprising that the Braves got out to a rough start, given that they started the season on the road against two of the best teams in baseball. On the other hand, not even taking a single game from either series does not bode well for the rest of the season. Then again, they gained some momentum as April went on, winning four series in a row in convincing fashion. On the whole, though, it's looking like a cursed season already, especially when their starting left fielder Jurickson Profar is now suspended for PED usage. They've still got such a high ceiling, but it's becoming clear that they might not have the height to reach it anymore. After losing to the Dodgers in a two-game series they had no real chance in, the Cubs returned to America and have been one of the best teams in baseball. Most of their early schedule has been against the NL West, and they're not backing down from the challenge. Their offense is just clicking now, making their weak bullpen less of a factor overall. Who would have thought that Carson Kelly would have such an outstanding start to the year? Kyle Tucker is also proving to be a great acquisition, but the team still hasn't locked him up for the future. If they can keep him, the Cubs are back in business for the long term. The Brewers had a historically awful start, losing their first 4 games by a combined score of 47 to 15. Since then, though, they've gotten back up to 500 with significantly improved pitching performances. Their young guns like Jackson Churio are finding their groove back as the season goes on. Their bullpen is shockingly terrible, though, and are prone to allowing some truly embarrassing numbers even still. This year's iteration of the Brewers is Jekyll and Hyde, only you'll never know which one will show up any given day. The Reds are eager to prove that they belong in the conversation, but they've been too streaky to fully cement their position as one of the best. While they can look very impressive and rattle off a 4 game winning streak with a ton of runs, they just as easily lost 1 to nothing 3 days in a row earlier in the month. They've been playing better to close out the month, but it remains to be seen how sustainable it is. At the very least, though, the Reds have a stellar rotation and youthful energy that makes them exciting to watch. The Cardinals are this year's shootout team, where every game will feature tons of runs back and forth. Their rotation is completely cooked, and they still don't have a consistent closer. Despite that, Brendan Donovan and Nolan Arenado have been hitting excellently so far, leading them to have one of the best offenses in baseball. While it's not sustainable for much success this season, it puts them firmly in mediocre territory, which is higher than most people expected. The Pirates are predictably terrible, already just going through the motions and comfortably returning to the basement of the division. Paul Skeens pitching once every 5 days can't save them from themselves. It's Groundhog Day. We're watching the same bad season play out over and over again ad nauseum. Something must change, but nothing will. We all knew the NL West was going to be the best division in baseball, but it just keeps elevating itself to new heights. The Dodgers, of course, got off to a hot start, sweeping their first 2 series in convincing fashion. While they cooled off a little bit after that, it still provided them a comfortable lead in the NL standings. They're not the only competitor in SoCal, though, because the Padres won their first 11 home games and are neck and neck with the Dodgers. They've been one of the best teams in the league at run prevention, even with Dylan Cease struggling so far. Their closer Robert Suarez had an incredible April, only allowing 1 earned run over 13 appearances. They're a real juggernaut, and could even run away with this crazy division if things keep clicking. Surprisingly right in the mix with their SoCal rivals at the Giants, who had an 8-1 start to the season. Their reputation from seasons past as an old and uninspired team is fully gone. The Giants have one of the most explosive offenses in the league, capable of breaking games open at any point, regardless of their opponent. Surely they'll cool off a little bit, since they can't play the Mariners every week, but my initial read on this team has been completely wrong. They're contenders, alright. The Diamondbacks certainly have the roster of a playoff team and fancy themselves as a playoff team, but they can't get out of their own way so far. It seems like there's always something melting down with this team, whether it's the rotation or the hitters not being able to hit or the bullpen turning to crap. They've already found some truly unique ways to lose, like Eugenio Suarez hitting 4 home runs and the team losing, or scoring 10 runs in an inning and losing. You never really know what you're going to get from a D-backs game. Corbin Carroll is playing at an MVP pace right now, and Josh Naylor has settled in nicely at first base. The bullpen was a concern heading into the season, and those concerns are only getting louder as the injuries and underperformances pile up. With how tough the NL Best is, the D-backs need to find some consistent form and fast. And then there are the Rockies, just huffing paint in the corner like always. More concerned with Zach Veen's unprofessional celebration than putting a winning product on the field for once in their damn lives. The Rockies just barely avoided the worst start in National League history by winning their last game of the month. Cause nothing screams professional quite like a 16% winning percentage, all of which came against fellow bad teams. But hey, they're the Rockies, this is how they like it.
Seems to normally have. Here's a drive to deep center. Varsho back. And did he catch that ball?